Well, I am the logical type. We're finally seeing her true self. She's more nervous than a scared rabbit. If the defense can find no fault in her with her testimony, I am ready to make a ruling. Please keep in mind as you cross-examine Mr. Wright. Okay. Did you say that was your intuition speaking to you? Don't confuse my methods of reasoning with your own. Look, if you want to prove that someone did something, you need 3 things. 3 things? A motive, an opportunity to commit the crime, and finally, decisive evidence. And if you think these 3 things through, the answer should be quite clear. You should have already known that, Phoenix. They did teach that to us in school, at least not for remember. May I continue now? I just wanted to mess with Phoenix right there. You can't hardly call the knife decisive evidence. The fingerprints on the knife could have been very well clever camouflage. Then, what about the button? The button? It's clear from the crime scene that the victim and his murderer fought. And during this fight, the criminal left the button from the ammunition just past you. Are you talking about this button, correct? But that button was found in the pleats of the Hakama. Is that correct? I would think that makes it very decisive evidence. Looks like you are outfoxed again, Mr. Wright. Anyway, the knife doesn't prove a thing. Please fix your testimony. I can't stand the sight of a man who can't gracefully accept his defeat. Thank goodness Mira can still look at me. With a nicely stare, yes. Well, think about it like this. We have to win this case, and I can't accept defeat when Maya's life's on the line, because if I accept defeat, she's dead. Which means your sister's dead with you, Mia. What was that, Mr. Wright? Nothing. This is the victim's autopsy report. It clearly states that the cause of death was strangulation by skull. Strangulation? This knife stab to the victim was done after the victim had already died. And what does that mean? Let's examine the evidence. This button has the victim's blood on it, which would mean that the knife was ripped off of the costume when? After the knife was stabbed into the victim. Exactly, which means it was impossible for the button to be torn off during the victim's final struggle. Which becomes the victim was strapped to death in that fight, strangled to death in that fight. That's right, Miss Andrews. There's no way this button was ripped off during the struggle. The button was subconsciously pulled off of the victim's already dead corpse. Order! What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of this, Wright? So what if the button was torn off already after the victim had already died? What does that change? Let me ask you one simple question, Mr. Edgeworth. Why was the button torn off? What purpose did it serve? What purpose? We now know that the button was not torn off during the fight. The murderer took his time in an effort to purposely rip off this from the victim's body. That would mean that the murderer had something in mind, wouldn't it? Mr. Wright, does this mean? You know to do with it. It's easy. To pin the crime on Engard. There's no way anyone would pin the evidence on themselves. Why would he pull it off and put it in his own Hakama pleats? The real matter is who in the world is the real killer then? And finally, Phoenix, you can't let your guard down yet. Not until the very end. Miss Adrian Andrews. I choose you! Look at Pokemon! I choose you, and you are Mr. Kurita's killer. What? My spare glasses! My spare glasses! Wait, I have another one. Order! This is a very great matter. Do you have any evidence that supports the trust? Any evidence? All the evidence points to Miss Andrews. What? How preposterous. You can't stick any of that on me. I can't I? Would you care to test me? Then, what about this knife? The knife was used to stab the victim after he had already been strangled to death. It was used to throw suspicion on Mr. Engard, naturally. A knife covered in the defendant's fingerprints could only be taken from his room. And the only one who had dinner with him and knew which knife to take was you. Test! Then, what about the button that was found in Matt's Hakama? That button was removed after the victim's body after he had already died. The only people who could have done so were the person who found his body or the killer. However, if Mr. Engard was the real killer, then there's no way he would have put such an incriminating evidence in his own Hakama. Ah! Another pair of my glasses! I have another one. The only person who could have put the button in Mr. Engard's Hakama was the person that went to wake him from his nap, which is you, yet again, Miss Andrews! I see. What about the empty guitar case? That was another piece of evidence that emanates Miss Andrews. The costume was used to hide the real killer's identity as they fled the crime scene. Now, who could have known that there's such a guitar costume inside the guitar case? There could have been only one person who prepared the costume for the victim. And that person is you, Miss Adrian Andrews. No, not alright. But Miss Andrews' fingerprints were nowhere to be found on the guitar case. And yet you proved that she was not wearing gloves at the time. That's right! That's because she didn't intend on leaving any prints. If someone had found out that she had touched the case, they would have asked her why. So she used a towel or something to open it. But the glass of tomato juice is a different story. Miss Andrews left her fingerprints on the glass to show that, yes, indeed, she was the classic dazed discoverer of a dead body. Ah, another bear! And I spent a small fortune on bear glasses. And to top it all off, there is this photo. A photo of the killer as they exited the scene of the crime, with no reasonable person on Earth can believe that Nickel Samurai is Mr. Engard. He would have been too short for his own costume if it was him. I'm shivering. Speaking of how tall people are, Miss Andrews, you're also kind of short in stature. Are you not? Please stop. Well, how about it, Miss Andrews? I've got all this time. Miss Andrews?
I refuse to testify.
What is that?
There's a law. It says I can't be forced to testify about something if it can incriminate me.
Well, yes, you're absolutely correct, Miss Andrews. The law does provide us with a way to avoid self-incrimination by allowing a witness to not testify if the testimony can cause damage to themselves. What? Pleading the fifth is not something most people would think about doing on the spot. Actually, thinking back to yesterday, Mr. On God's room.
Adrian Andrews? Yes. Think hard about what we just discussed. Understood? All right.
That's it. That's when Francisca planted the idea into our head. She must have told Miss Andrews not to testify things if things looked bad. You did a good job of proving everything up to this point, Phoenix. But there's still one thing you haven't done. Something I haven't done? What's wrong, Wright? Are you finished already? You run out of evidence? What's so humorous, Mr. Edgeworth? I'm sure you've realized this as well, Your Honor. But everything to this good the lawyer has proven up to now is meaningless. What? Everything you have proven is circumstantial. Circumstantial? Yes, circumstantial. You have yet to prove a single piece of definitive proof. Proof that Miss Andrews did in fact harbor a wish to murder Mr. Florida. Miss Andrews, you did want to kill Mr. Florida?
I believe that this may be incriminating to myself, so I will abstain from answering.
But Miss Andrews, if you do that, it would be the same as admitting your guilt, don't you think?
Maybe so, maybe not, but there's nothing to prove it in either way. Besides, you don't want to know what crime I would be guilty of due to my silence. No, she's taking that defiant attitude again. Mia, what should we do? Somehow I've landed into the worst possible situation.
Testify! I need her. Miss Adrian Andrews has refused to testify, and the defense's theory that he is the actual murderer has not been fully sustained with solid definitive proof, but that's not true. In this situation, there's only one thing this court can do, and that's declare a recess. Recess? I request that both the prosecution and the defense look into this matter tomorrow. No! We have to do it today! We must do the court today. Please wait, Your Honor. That is not necessary. The trial, please continue the trial. What are you sweating for? Your client is getting one more day to live, isn't he? That's not it. This isn't about that. Edgeworth, I know you know who the real killer is. Please, let the trial continue. If I don't get the verdict, then Maya... What? What about Maya? What about your little cheering squad? I don't see... I see her, the brown-haired girl. But that is brown-haired Mia. But I do not see Maya Fey. Where is she? So, objection! It is not impossible for this trial to continue.
What?
Mr. Edgeworth, what are you? It's true. Miss Andrews holds the right to, against self-incrimination. However, the topic of conversation were to something unrelated, whatever she said she may be guilty of, then she has no right to withhold testimony. Yes, that is very true, but actually, there's one little thing I'm curious about. Miss Andrew, when you found the victim's dead body, you poured yourself a glass of juice.
Yes, and
I can't help to think how unnatural that is. Usually, when someone finds a body, they are shaken up, not stirring a glass of juice. So my actions were unusual, but I've already. Before you speak, I want you to state that you have a reason behind your actions. Testify. Your Honor, I would like to request that the witness testify again as to what happens when she first discovered the victim's body. Whatever we find out in this testimony should in no way implicate our witness. I don't know what to say if Edgeworth what it is about Edgeworth today, but I don't know what it is about Edgeworth today, but I can't get a good read on him. Is he friend or foe? I just don't know. The court acknowledges the prosecution's request. Miss Andrews, if you please. And stop playing with your card! That card,
The glass of juice, I didn't really pour it for myself. I was surprised when I walked into the room and saw it in a messy state. And Juan, he was just sitting there stumped over, tired looking in the corner. When I saw him sitting like that, I thought of he was dead didn't cross my mind. To be honest, I thought he had just fainted or something. So I went and poured him a glass of juice, and I realized that he was dead. That's when I knocked the flower vase over.
So you poured the glass of juice for the victim? Why didn't you say so in your earlier testimony?
I didn't think I needed to include something so trivial. Phoenix, be careful here. If you can't find anything wrong in the testimony, then there's nothing left.
I know. Edgeworth, what the heck is going... Now then, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination. Kind of hard when there was a knife in his chest. So you honestly didn't think he was dead when you found him?
No, not at all.
Even though this is what you saw when you discovered his body? With a knife. Ah. What is the meaning of this? Isn't it obvious, Your Honor? There's a knife sticking straight out of Mr. Corrida's chest. Anyone who saw the scene would have immediately thought that here was a dead man.
Well, you see.
I doubt a single person in the world would make that would mistake this for someone who fainted, and then so nonchalantly go pour someone that to drink. Your point is, Miss Andrews, your testimony just now, it was just one giant lie.
Another half glass.
And your lie was proven one thing very clearly, that you are the real killer.
No.
It looks like the defense has somehow brought the ugly truth to light. The defendant, Miss Matt Engard, is not guilty after all.
But that's impossible. You're wrong.
Miss Andrews, try to have some composure.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me, I tell you. It was Matt. I swear it. He was the one that killed Juan.
But you were the one that who refused to testify. And your reasoning for not doing so was that it might end up incriminating yourself.
That's because...
Miss Andrews, I will give you one last chance. What exactly are you hiding that may incriminate you?
I refuse to testify.
Then there's no need for this court to continue any further. Mr. Ungod's innocence has been clearly demonstrated. Is it over? Have we found the truth?
What's wrong, Phoenix?
Usually, the real killer confesses his or her guilt. And now that I think about it, this is the first time someone hasn't. Now then, I would like to hand down my verdict for Mr. Ungard. Come on, Edgy! That's a lot. The prosecution feels that it would be premature to pass down a verdict at this time. What? The reason is quite simple. The witness has yet to speak the absolute real truth. The absolute real truth? What are you, witness? Don't you understand yet?
Huh?
I don't know who planted this silly idea in your head, but as long as you protect yourself through your silence, Matt on guard will go free, and in his place, you will become the guilty party.
That's a lie. I don't believe you.
What?
I was told if I spoke, then it would be all over, and Matt would never be declared guilty.
What in the world is she talking about? Has she lost it?
I cannot speak about it. I'm too scared.
It's Francisca von Karma. Don't you remember? Phoenix Miss Andrews lives in it, by gripping tightly onto the words of others, because she doesn't have the strength to believe in herself. Other than that, right now, Miss Andrews is. Yesterday, she was tossed a lifesaver by Miss Von Karma.
Don't say a word. No matter what happens, if you do, Matt and God will be acquitted.
Miss Andrews is undyingly believes in those words right now and is clinging on to them. Then what should we do? This is the first time I've come across anything like this. Let's bleed on you!
It wasn't me. I'm begging you, please. I didn't kill Juan. Help me, please. Someone help me.
Mr. Wright? Yes, Your Honor. The court can't continue like this. Therefore, I'd like to hear what you intend to do. Right, I suggest you carefully think about what the witness did and what she did not do. And think about who is the real mastermind behind this crime. There's no one else who could be. It could be except this woman right here, over there, the crying woman over there, right? Come on, come now. I'm gonna request that guilty. To mention, I don't have a choice but to win a complete acquittal today. Your Honor, the defense believes there is enough evidence to substantiate our claims. Therefore, we motion that this court passes a verdict of not guilty as soon as possible. I'm disappointed in you, right? What have you learned in this past years? Yeah. That's enough. I commend you for trying, Mr. Edgeworth. However, it's clear that the defense's theory is truth.
Yeah, you're wrong.
What a shame. I had hoped things wouldn't come to this, however. What is it, Mr. Edgeworth? Miss Andrews, since you absolutely refuse to testify, it falls on my shoulders to disclose this to the court.
Stop!
Mr. Edgeworth?
This witness, how should I put this? She has an illness.
What? And because of this illness, she has tried to commit suicide in the past.
Stop, please stop!
No matter how much you want to hide it, it's no use. I have the evidence right here. That's the second part of the suicide report. The attempted suicide. What will you do now, witness? You know what I'm about to do, don't you? I will now reveal to the court the true nature of the pitiful woman known as Adrian Andrews.
Please, please stop. I beg you, please. If people find out,
If you're going to say you would choose death, that is no concern to me. Edgeworth, how could you be so cold? However, before you die, I will pull the truth from your still breathing lips, no matter what I have to do. So will you tell the court yourself, or shall I? Either is fine with me.
I'll talk, but please help me. When I first saw him, I really thought he had fainted, honestly. When I realized he was dead, that was when I formulated my plan. Once I made sure that there was no one in the hallway, I made a dash back to Matt's room. Then I stabbed Juan's death with the knife, and I ripped off the button. Just when I finished and was trying to Matt's room, I had a bit of an inconvenience. That's why I ended up using the Nickel Samurai's costume.
Stabbed the body with a knife? But why would you do that?
Isn't it obvious to blame the blame on a certain cowardly man?
What did you mean by all of this? It might be take the court a little while to understand, but this is the truth.
The real killer is Matt, that scumbag of a man. I'll never forgive him. He's trying to escape his guilt again, just like last time.
Last time?
So Miss Andrews
stabbed the victim of Juan Credo in the chest with a knife. However, she didn't do it with murder in mind. She did it with the intent of framing Matt on guard for the murder. And this is her crime. What? How is this possible? I mean, wasn't Miss Andrews supposed to be the real murderer? Mr. Wright, please get over your shock and commence the cross-examination. This is going to be a hard thing to do. Okay, so you're saying you could tell from the state of the rumors that there must have been a fight. So you're telling me the truth when you said that you did not know he was dead?
He had his scarf tied around his neck, but that scarf was part of the Gemma Ninja's costume, so I didn't think anything about it was strange. His head was also tilted down a bit, so I couldn't see his face that well. That's why I thought I'd wake him up. And I went to pour the juice. What is this plan you had? I knew right away the matter was Matt, so I knew it was because Juan, he was going to expose Matt's weak point to the world. So Matt did this to stop Juan and silence him for good. That's when I thought I should forge some evidence and pin the crime on Matt.
So you forged pieces of evidence with a knife and the button.
The first thing that came into mind was the point of the knife. Once I made...
So you could get the knife, correct?
The knife used at dinner had his fingerprints all over it. I thought that if I used that, then the police would certainly turn their eyes towards him. Matt was napping in his costume at the time. I slipped in, took the knife, and returned to the scene of the crime.
So you who were the one who stabbed the victim with that knife. It gives me goosebumps to think about it now. What a horrible thing I did. But at the time, I couldn't control my own body. It moved on its own. Then, when I stabbed one's dead body, I suddenly realized something. If I used a button to somehow I could make Matt look even more suspect. So that's when you thought you ripped one of the buttons off it and then planted in Mr. Ungard's hakama. Yes, that's what I had planned to do. But things never got that smoothly, do they? What was this inconvenience? There was a woman with a camera loitering in the hallway. I'm willing to bet my spikes that it was a lot of... There was also a woman with a ray gun ready, pacing back and forth. That's Miss Old Bag for ya. I had already been caught and ate into a big scoop for a certain weekly tabloid once. So I couldn't very well go out and looking like myself and get caught again. You were the one who prepared the costume, weren't you? Yes, I took it from Global Studios. I also put it in Juan's guitar case the day before the award ceremony. You did this in preparation for the press conference, correct? Yes, Juan wanted to wear that costume and hold the press conference in it. He was going to disclose Matt's big secret there. What is this secret? That I don't know. Anyways, I thought if I were to leave Juan's room in the Nickel Samurai costume, then people think that Matt was the real murderer. I was very careful to not leave any fingerprints when I opened the guitar case. I absolutely didn't want anyone to know about the costume. I think we've heard enough. So after that, you went back to Mr. Ungard's room and planted the button into Matt's hakama, yes. After that, I folded up the costume I was wearing and put it into a bag. Then I snuck it out of the hotel and got rid of it. My word! What does this all mean? Mr. Edgeworth, is it? The real criminal is Matt Ungard. Yesterday, that woman prosecutor sat me down for a talk. Francisca, huh? She said I should under no circumstances confess what I had done. That if I did, just kept quiet, then Matt would be found guilty for sure. I had no choice but to believe her in her words. What this witness has done is clearly unlawful, however, as long as her testimony stands, we can be certain she is not the real killer. Wait, Your Honor! The defense still! Right. It's pointless. At this point in time, it is not possible to indict Miss Andrews on anything. Yes, exactly. There is not a single point of a piece of evidence that points to her as the murderer. But can we get to Matt? The cross-examination of this witness is over, and so is this today's trial. You couldn't establish this that the witness was the culprit, so please let it go, Mr. Wright. But what about my not guilty? No. But Mr. Edgeworth, please place Miss Andrew under arrest for further questioning. Understood, Your Honor. The prosecution will arrange for her detention immediately. That is all. Court is adjourned for today. No! Maya! No! Today's trial is over. Acquittal. Witness, would you mind if I ask you something? Edgeworth? What is it? Before you leave the court today, I wondered if I might look at one thing. The card in your hand. It has my interest It's had my interest for quite some time now. What exactly is it? Oh, this. Mr. Wright also asked about this. Although I don't remember about at the time you asked me about it, Mr. Wright. I remember just now that I found it in the room on that day. That day? Yes. I found this card when I discovered Juan's body. I thought it was lying there, right next to him. You found the card next to the victim's body. I suppose I must have have unconsciously slipped it into my pocket. But it's not as if the card is any relevance to Juan's murder, right? Yeah, I guess it. But it's still a strange card, if you ask me. But as far as a clue to this case, I don't see. Hold it. Witness, that card. Give it to me. Hurry. Edgeworth? Do you have any idea what you have stupidly yet inadvertently done? This, I cannot believe you hid this from me all this time.
I didn't mean to. What is this all about?
I've never seen Edgeworth this. I know who this card is for. That card. What in the world is it? What does it mean? And we will see you all in the next video.